He's gonna leave it
Oh,
there
it looks
now.
good. Perfect.
It's not out of shape.
After he hung it on a couple of times and took it off.
Okay.
Now what am I supposed to do? Read?
Well, I'm getting set up.
This is a life story of William and Clara Sanderson. Is that right?
Well, you can start there. Yeah. Well, first of all, when's your birthday?
My birthday,
Yeah.
January 21, 1918.
So you're going to be 98 next birthday.
I was 98 last January.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, why don't you, let's first of all, where were you born at?
Bedford, Nebraska, at my father's aunt and uncles, Jim and Gertie Sanderson.
How many brothers did Grandpa have?
I'm not sure. One of them was Grandpa Bill, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, he had
Art and Ed.
Art and Ed and Roy, 3.
Okay, so who was Jim? Was that your grandpa's brother?
That was Dad's
Uncle.
uncle.
So that was his dad.
Jim and Gertie was a brother to Grandpa Sanderson. Jim Sanderson. And I was born in their home in Bedford, Nebraska. We were on our way, Dad and Mom was on their way to Sutherland because Mom was about due, and they got stuck in a snowbank, and Mom got out and tried to help push, and they got out of the snow, and they got into Thedford, and stayed all night with his aunt and uncle, and then I was born there that night. And Mom was sick, and the old doctor gave her teaspoons of whiskey or something. She got pneumonia, and she wouldn't taste whiskey till she was probably 80 years old.
What do you mean she wouldn't taste it till she was 80?
You couldn't get her to taste it. It made her sick when they fed it to her when she was sick. Well, that's what she told me.
Okay. What? They had a car in 1918?
I have no idea.
You said they got stuck in the snow.
Yeah. I suppose they had something. They didn't talk about that. I never heard that.
But I mean, they didn't. Why did they take a team and wagon out to Wyoming when you were?
They didn't have cars then.
Well, that's what I'm wondering about. For instance, this picture.
Yeah, I know. I've never seen that picture. I have no doubt. That looks like a tent over the wagon.
Well, it's just a covered wagon, you know. It's got the
Well,
hoops.
but that's the covered wagon up there that we traveled in.
Well, that's a sheep wagon.
Well,
And
I
maybe
don't-
that's
I've
the-
never seen this picture.
Maybe this was a sheep wagon
You must
too.
have had a negative you had printed, because I've never seen that.
Well,
I know I gave you negatives.
but I mean, would they have had? Why would they have been taking cattle to Wyoming? Or maybe this isn't.
It isn't their cattle, it's would be Keyline's cattle, I suppose. They took sheep, they took horses from Valentine for Grandpa Sanderson, Art, and Bill, I think, took him up to Wyoming and then they brought him back. They say, I don't know. Now, you got that thing turned on?
Yeah. But you don't have to be self-conscious.
Well, I don't care, but I want to know what you want me to do.
Well, let's just talk.
This is a story about Bill and Clara Sanderson. And it says William Henry Sanderson was born in Broken Bow, Nebraska, June 27th of 1892. He lived in Mullen, Nebraska, and Sutherland areas all of his early years. Clara May Humphrey was born in Sutherland, Nebraska, November 1st, 1896, and lived in Sutherland all of her early years. Clara graduated from high school in 1915. She taught school the fall of 1915 and 1916, and 16 and 17. Bill and Clara were married May 2nd, 1917 at North Platte, Nebraska. They lived at the Taylor Ranch south of Sutherland till the fall of 1917. Then they drove with Art and Grandpa Sanderson on this
Cattle. Grandpa Sanderson's cattle.
cattle
To near Ainsworth.
to near
Nebraska.
Ainsworth, Nebraska.
Who typed this, do you think? Who typed this?
I just had it printed. They got there for Thanksgiving. They lived near and worked with the Sanderson family through the summer of 1918. Francis was born January 21st, 1918. Grandpa Sanderson had gone to Wyoming. Bill and Art drove Grandpa's cattle or horses to Wyoming for.
Just a second, Sandy. Was Grandpa in Wyoming when you were born?
No, he was in Thetford, Nebraska.
Well, okay, and it's just the way that read, I wondered. Okay.
Bill and Art drove Grandpa's horses to Wyoming for him, but he and Art then drove them back. Bill stayed in Wyoming. He filed for homestead, but didn't get it. He got a job at Keyline's Ranch. Clara and Francis went to Wyoming by train, spent the summer there, 1919. Clara and Francis went to Sutherland by train, and Bill came to Valentine, Nebraska, and worked for the American Cattle Company. They lived on the Shaw Place north of Mission for a while during the winter of 1919 and 1920. In the summer of 1920, they lived southeast of Valentine by the Sears Place. Where the petrified tree was. Bill herded sheep. Elda was born December 16th, 1920. They moved to Valentine in the spring of 21 and then went back to Wyoming by wagon covered by a covered wagon, but got no work, so Clara and the girls went by train to Sutherland, and Bill shipped the stuff and went back to Gordon, Nebraska, and worked for Irvin's ranch. The first 1 mile west of Gordon, stacking hay that summer. Bill had a small place in town. In the fall of 1921, Clara and the girls went by train to Gordon, and they moved to the Irwin's ranch. Bill trapped and Clara skinned all winter. They had 50 cents in their pocket when they went Now, wait a minute.
When you went out there.
Bill Tratt, they had 50 cents in their pocket when they went out there. In the summer of 22, Bill farmed a small place. Frances broke her arm, and they picked cow chips and stacked them in the chicken house. In the fall of 22, Bill and Clara drove by wagon to Valentine to shuck corn for Grandpa Sanderson. They went back to Gordon in a snowstorm, and they kept thinking they were glad they had cow chips to burn when they got there. They later moved to the Berryman Ranch near Gordon, and Bill and Art worked for the ranch. Simon Vinegar and George Humphrey were to visit and worked in at the ranch while there. After this, Bill and Clara went to Valentine and stayed with Grandpa Sanderson and the girls on the Sorensen place north of Valentine. In 1923, we lived in a sod house and later in the place Bill built next to Walter Hayward's place. This was all north of Valentine by Lamrose. Frances started school in Valentine, Nebraska in 1924. This spring of 1925, they moved to the Sorensen place, and Frances went to the Wood School for her second year. In the fall of 26, we moved back to Valentine to the McNeil house. Elda had started school in Valentine at 4 years old, but didn't like it, so quit. While
She wanted to go.
she wanted to go because Frances was. She started again in Valentine in 1926 at 5 years. In the spring of 27, the family moved to Gordon, Nebraska, where Bill Shadron, Nebraska, where Bill bought hides, furs, and metals for the Norfolk Hide and Metal Company. We lived there till November of 29. We moved back to Valentine for Thanksgiving and lived in Denier's basement till February 22nd of 1930, when we moved to South Dakota onto the Gowan's place, 6 miles south of Mission. Bill worked for the John Batchelor on the Antelope Ranch and did farming. They lived there until 1936, when they turned the lease over to Frank Teashout. They then lived in Mission. Over the next years, Bill ran a few sheep in various pastures places, and later Bill and Chick got liquor into Mission. After that, Bill and Clara ran the Mission liquor store until the city wanted a municipal liquor store, so they refused a license to Bill and Clara. The license was in Clara's name. Bill died in July of 74. Clara still sold her house to Laurel Bittner and moved to Winter on November 1st, 1980. She lived in the apartment across the street from Elda at 810 West 10th Street until they moved her stuff out in July of 1984 and saved it
Moved it.
moved it to Rapid City, South Dakota. Clara went into the medical manor in Rapid City on June 27th, 1984. Now, what do you want, Mike?
Well, I'm just looking here at 1917. They were Grandpa and Grandma were married in 1917.
Yes. Well, it says that here. I already said that.
What day were they married?
They were married May 2nd, 1917, at North Platte, Nebraska. And they lived at the Taylor Ranch south of Southern till the fall of 17. You got anything turned off?
It's still on.
Huh. And this is your Grandpa and Grandma Humphrey?
That's Clara's parents.
Yeah, let me just hold it there for a second.
That's Grandma and Grandpa Humphrey at Sutherland, Nebraska. And I have this that I said Grandpa and Grandma Humphrey moved to North Platte to a place 10 miles southwest of Sutherland, and that's where Clara was born.
When? 1896.
Yes, she was born in 1896, November 1st. They moved to a place on the hill just north of Sutherland for a little while, but to the west, and they lived there till Clara was 3 or 4 years old, and Murray was already about 1.5 years old, and Clara was worried that they wouldn't move her stick horse along with the furniture. They moved then to south of the tracks in Sutherland, and that's where they found a snake under their rocking chair when they came home from church on Sunday. From there they moved to the home.
Notable event.
From there they moved to the home west of town, west of Southern, where George and Katie were both born. As far as I know, they lived there the rest of their lives, and that was where Elda and I, my sister, liked going to Grandpa and Grandma's for Christmas and summer times. Their grandson, George Jr., still lives in Sutherland, Nebraska. Clara was my mother. I am now 98 years old, and I live in Echo Ridge Senior Apartment in Rapid City, South Dakota. May 28th, 2016. Both of these were written by me, but many years between the black ink and the blue, and I signed it, Francis D. Clausen.
But I'm wondering about this typed up sheet. That was handwritten originally, wasn't it?
Well, Mom wrote it, but she gave everybody a copy but me. I was in Texas, and when I saw him, I said, "How come I didn't get a copy?" "Oh, you got one." And I said, "No, I didn't." So she gave me a piece of paper that was ripped off of some advertisement, and she had it on there, and she gave it to me. So I suppose I maybe typed it up.
You were Mom, I suppose.
Wow, here's a really,
Well, I brought that. You don't get to keep anything I brought today, 'cause you're not.
I have that,
I
Mike.
know.
I have that.
Did you say you don't get to or you get to?
No, I don't get to.
Well, any copies can.
What do you want to know about it?
Well, I'm just going back here to the,
Rapiers.
up on Grandma Clara's side, your
Well-
mother.
Well, here's her father, Joseph Henry Ross Humphrey. Born in Stanley County, Ohio.
Selby.
Selby County, Ohio, April 9,
1863.
1863. Died December 2nd, 1945. Buried at Sutherland, Nebraska. And Louisa Katie Rapier,
His wife.
his wife, was born in Lee County, Iowa, May 29th, 1893.
1873.
73. Died September 18th, 1945. Buried in Sutherland.
Oh.
They were married at Madrid, Nebraska, October 3rd of 1895.
Okay, then your grandpa Joe's parents, Mary Elizabeth McCullough, born near Sydney, July 2, 1820, Ohio, Sydney, Ohio. Died September 14, 1900.
1906.
06.
That's what's on that quilt that I have.
Buried Sutherland, Nebraska. And then her husband, James Duane Humphrey, born New York State, October 3, 1811. Died January 3, 1880. Buried Marion, Illinois.
Maroa, Illinois.
Yeah. And then
George-
her husband was George Ray. No, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Grandma's
Okay,
father,
your grandma,
Grandma
Louisa Katie Rapier.
Lucy, they always called her Lucy. Her father was George Rapier, born in
Baden.
Baden, Germany, June 18th, 1838. Died March 22nd of 1914, buried in North Platte, Nebraska. And her father, her Lucy's grandmother was Catherine Auenheimer, born in Germany, July 18th, 1844. Died September 2nd, 1907, buried in North Platte, Nebraska.
And then Mary Elizabeth McCullough's father, Archibald Livingston McCullough. Doesn't say what year.
Where are you seeing that?
Over here. Doesn't say what year he's born, but his daughter was born in 1820, so
1700s.
probably.
Don't know the mother's name.
Is this your writing? Is this your handwriting?
No, that's Mom's, I think.
Oh,
Let's see. Yeah, that's Grandma's handwriting.
and then down on Grandpa Sanderson's side.
William Henry Sanderson, born March 30th, 1828.
And that's his grandfather.
That was
Yeah.
his grandfather. And he's buried in Southern. He was born March 1828 and he died in 1908, buried in Southern. And we put a tombstone on his grave over a few years ago. And his wife was Jane Barnhouse.
Born September 22, 1835.
And died December 20th, 1917, born in Farmington, New Mexico.
Oh. Buried in Farmington, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mary Jane Longwell. Who was she? That was Grandpa's grandmother.
Eliza's Jane was my grandma.
Jane was your grandma. So who was Mary Jane?
Her mother, I suppose. Her mother and father, Daniel Culver. No.
No, that's not right. They're two died in 1920. Mary Jane Longwell's ancestors were Holland Dutch, settled in New York. Their colony got run out there, and they went to Pennsylvania and settled in a colony. And that's Mary Jane Longwell. Now, and that's the one on the bottom, but I don't know who she is.
That one's mother, probably.
That's why my grandpa Humphrey
Yeah, maybe.
always said that I said I'm Norwegian, Scotch, German, and Dutch. And Grandpa always said, and the Dutch don't amount to much. And then he'd laugh and say, because we were the Dutch that got run out of New York way back.
Norwegian, Dutch, Scottish, and what?
Norwegian, Scotch, Irish, German, and Dutch.
Scotch Irish, yeah. Grandpa was Scotch Irish.
Me. Norwegian, Scotch, Irish, German, and Dutch.
Who were the Norwegian?
Dad,
Huh?
Sanderson.
He was Norwegian?
Sanderson.
Norwegian,
S-O-N.
and Irish.
He said, I'm Norwegian, Scotch Irish, he always said.
Grandpa was German, and Grandma was full-blooded German. Mom was half,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm a fourth.
Scotch Irish.
Now, see, that one's name is Eliza Jane, and I think those Culvers are her parents.
You,
Sanderson.
so you mean,
That was Grandpa's mother and dad there, and her name was Eliza Jane. And I think that, I'm not sure, it just seems like Grandma always said her parents were Culvers, but I'm not sure.
well, why was Jane Barnhouse, or Eliza Jane, buried in New Mexico? Because her husband, William Henry Sanderson.
They never.
Oh, no, here's the deal.
They never.
Here's the deal. Yeah,
Claimed
yeah.
it.
Jane and
You're
Eliza
right.
Jane are
I
two
was
different
one
people.
generation off. Eliza Jane was the daughter of Jane Barnhouse.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. 28. What the heck? Jane Barnhouse, born September 22, 1835, died 1917, and buried in Farmington. Okay, I see. Now I get it. So Grandpa Bill's dad's name was Henry Burdell
Henry Burdell.
Sanderson, and his dad was William Henry Sanderson.
Mhm.
And then Grandpa Bill, his name was William Henry Sanderson
Yes.
too.
And Bill and his dad, William Henry, they buried the other William Henry in Sutherland, Nebraska. Dad was, I don't know how old he was, but he said he went and helped dig the grave and bury his grandpa. You're getting all of that on the picture, huh?
Well, I just wanted to show what we're looking at. Well, didn't Grandpa have an aunt or something that was born in Ireland? Didn't I always hear that there was an aunt that was born in Ireland and she used to smoke a pipe? Or maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
This note says Rayfiers came from Iowa, Humphreys from Illinois, Joe's parents from Illinois. Grandpa Joe's parents came from Ohio to Illinois. He died in Illinois. They shipped their stock, furniture, and them rode in a railroad car to Paxton, Nebraska. I remember that, them telling that.
Who did?
Grandpa Joe Humphreys' parents. Humphreys, Joe's parents, Elizabeth
McCall.
and Joe came from Ohio to Illinois. He died in Illinois. So then they shipped their stock, furniture, and themselves. They rode in the railroad car to Paxton, Nebraska. Mrs. Rollerson was Grandpa Joe's sister from Aurora, Illinois. Grandpa Joe, born in Shelby County, Ohio, in 1863 and died in 45. At age 4, he moved with his parents to Illinois. In 1893, he moved to south of Paxton, married in 1895, October 3rd. Soon afterward, they moved to Sutherland.
So the Humphreys, were they German?
Yes,
And Rayfiers were German,
I would assume.
because George Rayfier was born in Germany, and so was Catherine Annerheimer. Aunheimer?
How do you spell it?
Looks like A-U-E-R-N Heimer, H-E-I-M-E-R.
Aurn, Heimer, Auenheimer, Rayfier. Well, if I'd had time to take these notes that I found and put them all in order. So Grandma was born in Iowa, and Grandpa was born in Ohio.
Now, is this your handwriting? Right there?
Probably. This, but
Yeah,
Not-
this
not
is mine.
that.
Right. Is this your writing? This down at the bottom?
this right here is,
No, that's Grandma's.
no, that's my writing. This would be Grandma's, but not this right here.
Francis Dill. That's so that. It
That's
looks
it.
like Grandma's writing. I mean, it all looks like the same pen. Although, is this?
Well, I print, see, this is my writing. That's my writing, and this is all my writing. It probably is.
Anyway.
Yeah, I suppose this is. Mhm. Yeah, I copied this off of that piece of garbage that Mom gave it to me on. I
What,
could
you
hardly
mean,
make it out.
you mean this is all you're writing?
I guess so. God, it's awfully. But it was just. Not too many years ago that I made this copy, so it wasn't as good a writing as I used to do. Yeah, it's my
That's
writing.
that's your.
Yeah, it's my writing, but I was just making notations.
And we said that was Grandma's writing, but it isn't.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, where in the heck?
Are we turned off or on or what?
Oh,
It's on.
it's always on. Doesn't make any difference.
Where in the heck is what?
Um, you don't remember anything about Grandpa Sanderson having an aunt or a grandmother maybe that came from Ireland? Let me see this. And is this something that, this type thing here, is that what Grandma wrote up?
Yes, you get. Well,
And these two pictures are dated 1917. Grandma and Grandpa.
well, I have my mother Clara's high school graduation certificates. She graduated in 1914 from the 11th grade. That's as far as Sutherland School went.
Yeah.
And then that summer, the school board decided they could scrape up enough money to put on the 12th grade. So she went back and did the 12th and graduated in 1915. So I have both 14 certificate and 1915. And they're big things like, but they're so heavy paper and been folded so many years that you can hardly get them open. I've always felt like I should have taken them to southern Nebraska, and my cousin still lives there in town, and my Aunt Myrtie's husband Murray passed away years ago, but she left 2 sons. And one of those sons, my cousin, was on the school board for a few years. I should have taken those certificates and asked them if the school board would have been interested, or if they had a show place where they could put an old certificate of the first class, 12th class that ever graduated from there.
Yeah.
And that was Sutherland?
Clara Humphrey from Southern.
No, I mean, and here's the picture of Grandpa and Grandma, probably.
That's Bill and Clara.
Right. Sometime before 1920, I would guess.
No, I don't know. When Mom wasn't one to explain things or talk about it, really. She and Dad would get to talking about Wyoming, and I would hear it, but it wasn't that they made a special explanation to me about all of it, when and how and where.
Well,
But I remembered a lot of things that I heard them talk about.
like what?
Well, a time in Wyoming, and Mrs. Keyline was in the garden one morning. They had a home in, I think, Gillette, but they sometimes spent a lot of summertime on the ranch. And she had a garden, and I came out of the house onto a little flat platform outside the screen door, and she heard the screen door slam, and she looked up, and I came out of the house and back up against the screen door and stood there. And she said she went on hoeing, and in another minute she looked up, and I was still standing back up to the screen door, and she thought, well, that was strange because I never stood still that long. I was 2 years old or 3 years old. 2.5, I suppose. And so she walked up there to see what I was just standing straight against the screen door. And she said there was a big rattlesnake coiled about 3 foot from me on the wooden platform. He was looking toward me, and I was staring at him. And she yelled for one of the cowboys down at the ranch house or the barn or somewhere. She said, come and bring your gun, and come now. And he ran up there and shot the snake. She told me that story, but of course I don't remember anything about that.
Well, here's a picture from the Keyline Ranch that Grandma had.
Strings of horses.
And then,
Well, I remember they used to tell me that they'd go out and chop out a wagon load of coal out of the side of a hill somewhere and haul it back to the ranch buildings. And now you say there's a coal mine out there.
oh yeah, big coal mine. Here's a couple more pictures from the Keyline Ranch. There's this one.
Well, I never saw that.
Well, I know, but
Mhm.
did
Maybe
you
that
ever
was
see
the
those?
Maybe that was the bunkhouse or something.
Did you ever see those Angora chaps that guy's wearing?
No. But Dad always said he used to have some.
Yeah, well, I mean, those chaps that he's wearing look to me like, I think they're the same chaps that Grandpa's got on in this picture. The three-legged horse picture. Remember that?
I remember the picture. Well, this was Grandpa's cousin.
Yeah, and Grandpa's
so-
wearing Angora chaps there.
Mm-hmm.
But the horse is kicking
Yeah.
one hind foot, so
Yeah, he just kicked his picture right off of the.
so Grandma always called that the three-legged
Yeah,
horse.
yeah.
And then here's a picture on the Keyline Ranch of guys branding.
Mm-hmm. Well, you see, Dad was head of rounding up the stray cattle when it came branding time. And Mom was the cook. And they'd go out with this covered wagon, and she cooked in that wagon out on the prairie, and there'd be a bunch of cowboys, and Dad was the head of the deal, the boss of these cowboys that was helping him round up the cattle.
Well, maybe that's what this picture is.
And they
then.
would cook in that camp, in that wagon, covered wagon, and feed them out there.
Well, and that's probably what this is.
And they all slept on the ground, and
Big rolls. But for some reason, I
but
thought,
how they would all eat, I guess they'd just go in and get their food and go back out and sit outside and eat it. Because they couldn't all get in there, it'd be,
looks to me like they're sitting there eating right when this picture's taken.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of looks like, that makes more sense. For some reason, I thought Grandma told me or something that that picture was going to Brown County.
but,
This is a neat picture. I like that.
who was that?
Just somebody breaking a horse. And it's I'm sure it's at Keyline because it was with that bunch of pictures. But see, the guy is, you can see his shadow down there. See, this guy has just gotten on that horse, or else he's
Well, the
getting
horse,
ready to get off
the
or
horse
something.
doesn't look very wild.
He's got a hold of the horse's ear.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way that they used to do it. They'd grab an ear, they called it earing them down. They would take a hold
How
of that
do you
ear.
know that? Who told you that?
Oh, that's just old cowboy stories. But I can see, he's got his hand
Yeah, he
on,
does.
he's got a hold of that horse's ear. And I can see that he's in a round pen, or a round corral. That's not a
Could
square
be.
corral, that's a round corral, and that's what they use for breaking horses. And you can tell by the looks of this horse, I mean, that horse is standing there about ready to blow up, but the guy's got his hand on his ear.
If he was,
You don't reach down and grab a horse's ear when it's broke. That's when it's a bronc.
he might have been just picking a bug off of it.
No, I don't think so.
Well, I don't know. I could tell you something else about when they were cooking. I remember Dad said one guy got kind of smart about, I guess they were supposed to, some of them would come in and sit down, but how could they sit down to eat? So I don't know, but he said this guy said something about, where am I gonna sit? Or there's no room for me to sit or something, and Dad said, threw him outside and told him to take your plate and go outside. You don't need to sit, you can go out there and eat. Because he expected Mom to get a chair fixed for him or something to sit down, and Dad didn't like that, so he threw him out of the camp, but then they couldn't all be in there to eat anyway, so it never made sense to me.
Well, maybe that was at the ranch.
No, they were out in the, where she was cooking for the bunch. She didn't cook at the ranch. They had a bunkhouse for the crew, and they had a cook, and
How do you know she didn't cook at the ranch? I thought she did.
no, she just took care of me, and but she cooked when they went out on the, to round up the cattle that they hadn't seen since last fall, and they didn't know how many calves they had out there. Round up and get them branded, I suppose. So have we done all of this? I think so.
Well, this says, Louise Katie Rafier Humphrey, born Lee County, Iowa, May 29, 1873. At the age of 11 years old, she moved with her parents to a homestead 12 miles southwest of Paxton, Nebraska. Here she grew to womanhood and taught school several years. At an early age, joined Methodist Church and was faithful member to the end.
Mhm.
Married Joseph Humphrey on October 3, 1895. Soon afterwards moved to Sutherland, married at the house of her parents in Perkins County, Nebraska. And then you wrote, I think, well, it says this was my grandma H. Humphrey, and she was always known as Lucy. I think you wrote that, maybe.
Yeah, that's my writing.
Then it says Joseph Henry Humphrey, born
Joseph.
Shelby County, Ohio, April 19, 1863.
No, this is Mom's writing right here.
That's what I thought.
This.
At the age of 4 years, he moved with his parents to Illinois, where he grew to manhood. In 1893, he came to Nebraska and resided south of Paxton for several years. At an early age, he joined the Methodist Church and was a faithful follower to the last.
Mhm. They walked to church every Sunday. They didn't have a car. They didn't ride a horse. They walked to church. It would have been a little over half a mile, I suppose.
Married on October 3, 1895 to Louisa K. Rafier. Moved to Sutherland soon afterwards, where they resided until their deaths. And on the back of this it says,
Well, it was Grandpa's parents that came from Ohio, and they shipped their stuff from, they came from Ohio. He died in Illinois, and then they shipped their stock and furniture and themselves to Paxton in a railroad car. I remember them telling Grandpa and Grandma talking about that.
Sandy, what did Grandpa Humphrey do for a living?
Raised sugar beets,
What did they do with sugar beets?
shipped them to, they made sugar out of them. What do
He
you
was a
think?
farmer.
Huh?
He was a farmer then.
Well, just a little patch. I mean, they had
Apple orchards.
they had all kinds of fruit trees,
Yeah.
and Grandma canned everything.
Who's the, who is it that's still in Sutherland? Jack, Junior, Elaine?
Junior's
Is it Junior?
is George.
Yeah.
He's George Junior.
And Jack died, didn't he?
Jack died.
And that Elaine, where's she?
Huh?
Where's she?
You mean Jack?
No, the daughter. Wasn't her name
Oh.
Elaine?
Well, there's Elaine and Lila Lee.
Lila Lee, that was it.
And they live up in the Sandhills north of Sutherland. Elaine lives
And Junior
in
still
Hershey
lives there.
now, which is between Sutherland and North Platte. I went down there for Ruby's, I think it was her 80th birthday or 80 something. I drove down there by myself. I told Roger I was going. And I just woke up in the morning and 2
Decided
days
to go.
later was her birthday, and I told Roger I was gonna go down there, because Ike and I drove that road to go to Texas 10 times, and I knew it by heart. From here, you go down past Hot Springs, and you go down there and you go through Chadron and
Yeah.
on down to North Platte. So I went, told him I was gonna stay 2 days. And when I got down there, I had taken the wrong bottle of pills. I didn't have any in my pills. So I stayed the next day, which was her birthday, and the next morning I got up and came home.
Now, who were those Klinkenbeards? How were they related?
Ellen, Dad's sister Ellen, married Carl Klinkenbeard.
Okay,
And so the Klinkenbeard kids are all my cousins.
okay. I always remember that name Klinkenbeard because it's such a strange name.
I got a letter from one of the girls, there was 2 girls,
Patty and Joanne.
Patty and Joanne. And Patty lives in, God, where did she?
Idaho, Oregon.
About 3 years ago, I got a note from her. She found out that I lived in Rapid City, and she said they were gonna come up here sometime. I've forgotten where she even lives.
It seems like it was Idaho.
Hmm?
It seems like it was Idaho or Oregon or somewhere up there on the west coast.
I just don't remember.
I was working at the Alex
Denver
Johnson.
maybe, or something, I don't know.
I was working at Alex Johnson Hotel, and one day somebody came to check in, and they were Klinkenbeard was their last name, and they were from Nebraska.
What was her first name?
He was just a young guy. He was younger than me.
Oh.
But I said I had family from Nebraska area, and their last name was Klinkenbeard. And he said, "Well, we're probably related. There's not a lot of Klinkenbeards."
Well, I have 2 Sanderson cousins in L.A., as far as I know.
Roy's kids.
Roy's boys, and a girl. They had a girl, but I can't even think of her name. I never saw her. I don't think.
Well, what's the first things that you remember?
In your life.
Stared at him.
Yeah.
First things I remember. I remember when I broke my arm, I fell off a horse when I was, God, I don't know, 4, down by Gordon, or where did they say it was? And this boy put me on the horse. He was 14, he was a neighbor boy. And he said, wrap your hands in those leather strings that hang down from the back of the saddle. Well, what did I know about wrapping my hands? Well, anyhow, he put me behind the saddle instead of in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
Behind the saddle, and the first step the horse took, I went hit the ground.
the ground.
and I had a hat of some kind, and it flew off, of course, and I broke my arm. I don't know which one. And I went to the house bawling, and I went in the house, and I remember the boy was trying to make me take my hat, and he was following me along, and he went to the house with me, and I went in the house, and I said to Mom, "Am I gonna die?" And she said, "No. We'll take you to town, and doctor will fix your arm." In later years, I told Mom something about that, and she said, "Oh, you don't remember a thing about it." I said, "I do too," and she said, "Well, how could you? You were only, I think it was 4, probably." I said, "I remember I was crying, and I said, 'Am I gonna die?'" And she looked at me, and she said, "Well, yeah, that is what you said." So I guess that's
Didn't
all I
remember.
remember. But we went to town, and the boy took his horse home. I guess he lived a mile off, away from where they were. And he ran back and went to town with us, and he and I sat in the back seat and played some kind of game. I don't know what we could play if I was 4 years old. Guessing how many sheep we saw or something. I don't know.
And did you and Mom live in that apartment by the hotel for a while? When you were going to school?
Where?
That apartment by the hotel? Or something?
Where? Where?
Mission.
I lived, the 2 McKinney girls and I lived in that north little apartment where it used to be Pete's office.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then,
but Mom didn't live there.
no. I was in high school, but Eldon wasn't in high school yet. She was in country school. Antelope Creek Country. Antelope Ranch. But, God, turn this thing off.
No, he wants to hear it.
Mike,
Hmm?
aren't you gonna turn this thing off?
No, you're
Well,
still
eventually,
talking.
but I'm just looking, here's this picture of, looks like you and Mom.
Me and Mom, you mean Eldon and
You
I?
and Mom.
You mean Eldon and I?
Yes, you and...
Oh, your mom.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's right. Well, I've seen that picture before.
Do
Mm-hmm.
you remember what house that was at?
Of course not.
Do you remember that horse?
No. I probably wasn't even riding a horse then. I wasn't in school or anything.
But you're about 4 years old there, it looks like, or 5.
I don't have any idea. The house looks like it's not sitting on the ground.
Right.
I'm not holding the horse, the reins or anything. I've seen the picture, but I have no idea.
It looks like I was gonna say, it looks like one of the same bridles as this, as in this other picture, but it's not. They must have liked to have those conchos on their headstalls. Cause that horse has got conchos, but it's not the same as the one in this picture
I don't
on
know
the
what a
headstall.
concho even is. I never heard of a concho.
Those, you see all those little rivets on that headstall,
Mhm.
silver.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, concho
Mhm.
or a.
Well, you see, I was 6 years old before I ever started school. I think, 24.
Do you have any idea where this, like this picture was taken?
No.
And who is it in the picture?
Grandpa Bill and his cousin.
What cousin was that?
The cousin had a small pistol packed in his belt. It is an Army issue 5-short revolver. 5-short revolver, made in 1878, originally belonged to my grandpa. Grandpa's a grandpa.
I don't know. That
My
doesn't look
grandpa
like.
ended up with it somehow, and he gave it to me. Well, I never heard of any pistol, and I never seen it, so I don't know. Well, I did hear his name, but it's not on here, and I
I don't think that's the same pistol. I'm not sure why I wrote that there.
don't know.
You know the pistol I'm talking about, though. don't you?
No, I've never seen it. Never heard anything about any. One Dad had, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, that's not the same pistol. In the picture. Didn't Grandma ever tell you anything about taking these pictures?
She never talked about nothing.
But you say this is Grandpa and Emma Sanderson.
Yeah, I'm sure. I've got,
Here's this card. It says Guy Fear, a
Oh.
mule buying guy.
I had, did I give this to you? I had a card and I gave it to Frank Fair one time, and I think he gave it back to me or something. Guy Fear, the mule buying guy, you need not fear to, you need not,
Fear when you
Fear
buy
this
your
guy.
mules from this guy.
his name was Guy Fear, yeah. He was Aunt Jenny's husband. Jenny's husband, Jenny Fair. They lived in Wallace, Nebraska. Well, it says that right here.
Yeah, but they lived in,
And he always had a, what did he do?
Whose husband was he?
Jenny.
Huh?
Who is Grandma, or was Grandpa's sister?
The oldest of the Sanderson.
Ron.
Well, I remember, I think it must have been this card that was always, Grandpa had it like on his dresser, on a mirror or something, in his room.
Well, I had one for years and years in my address book. I always had it, and I finally gave it to my cousin Frank Fair, I think. But they lived in Sutherland, but I don't think Frank's even alive anymore.
Yeah, and this says 1909 on it.
Well, they lived in Wallace, at south of Sutherland.
Yeah, but they moved up into Nebraska somewhere, and
Huh?
they moved into a city in Nebraska.
They moved-
Omaha, where?
They moved into North Platte.
North Platte, yeah, that's right.
And we stopped there to see him one time in the morning. We left, I suppose we left Grandma's or something at Sutherland, and we stopped in North Platte to see Aunt Jenny and Guy. And it was probably 9 o'clock in the morning, and they just insisted on getting us pie and cake in the morning. So we had pie and cake before we went, visited for an hour and went on.
Roland and I stopped and visited with them in North Platte. That's where it was. I couldn't remember.
Who?
Guy and Jenny.
Jenny always came up.
And we went out and sat in the yard on chairs, and they made lemonade and cookies and insisted we stay for have something to drink.
She always came up to Valentine to visit all of the Sandersons.
Mhm.
And Mom always had a fit about her. She was always wanting to do things, and she liked to sew, and she would want to fix us girls our clothes, sew some dresses or sew something. Mom didn't like that. Well, I don't know. But we always enjoyed Aunt Jenny. She was always nice.
Mhm. I thought she was.
But she always said to Dad, I remember she and Dad would argue a lot. They were the two oldest of the family, and she was arguing one time, and she threw her arms up her chair when they were back in the house out south of Mission, where we lived in a big cottonwood grove, you know. And she went over backwards and upset, and oh God, she was mad. She said to Dad, I should have drowned you in the tank when I could have, she said. They don't argue about things always. But I remember Grandma Sanderson. We lived on that Sorensen place, and I didn't go to school yet. But I remember walking up the road maybe a half mile, and then on the west side of the road, Grandma Sanderson lived there. They had a house there. And I remember going there, and she gave me some cookies or something to drink, and cookies, and I remember sitting there and visiting with her. And I probably was 4.5 or 5 years old. I didn't start to school until I was 6, because my birthday is in January, and
Mhm.
I had to wait. I was 5 in the middle of the year, and then the next, I don't know, in 24 I started in Valentine.
Mhm.
So from 18 to 24,
Six.
I was 6. Mhm. Take this thing away, Mike,
Huh? Here.
or I'm gonna throw it at you.
What?
Take this thing away. The camera.
Here.
Oh, yeah, well, that was taken in
New York, maybe?
No. That's when he was going to go to enlist. And we went to, Pete and Rose moved to, God, let me think. Pete worked for the bank out of Omaha. Oh, I can't think of the name of it now, but They moved to Sioux City, Iowa. Sioux City. I guess they were in Sioux City, Nebraska. Sioux City is both states. What is it?
Sioux City, Iowa.
Iowa and Nebraska. Anyhow, they lived there, and Pete worked for this bank out of Omaha, I think it was. And we went down there to stay, and oh, what was his name? Went with us. Nelson, Alvin Nelson, and I enlisted together in the Coast Guard.
Mhm.
We went to Sioux City and stayed with Pete and Rose, and they took us into Omaha, I think. I think they enlisted in Omaha the next day, and we thought they'd just maybe take them and they'd go. But they sent them home.
Take them and they go.
But that's where we were when they took that picture. And we'd been married 3 years already before the war. We was married December 39, and the war didn't start till 42. I was 21 when we were married. The next month I was birthday 22.
I thought it started in 41 when
Huh?
Japan, I thought it started in 41, I mean for the United States.
Oh, I suppose it did, but Pearl Harbor was
It's when they
42,
bombed.
wasn't it?
41, wasn't it? I think it was 41.
Well, anyway, Ike was gonna be next on the draft, so his feet always hurt him. He'd go home from the store, working all day in the store. We worked 14 hours sometimes, and take his shoes off, and his socks would be bloody.
Oh,
His feet bleed. He walked so much in the surveyors, he was always walking. He said, I can't get in the Army. If they put me in the Army and I'd have to walk, my feet would kill me. So he saw a PT boat, pictures of PT boats. He wanted to get on a PT boat. Pictures of New York Harbor PT boats buzzing around. He never even got to see one the whole time he was in New York. And then they sent him to Coney Island for basic training, and he wrote me a letter home. He was sitting on the sand on Coney Island with Rose in the sand trying to practice rowing a boat. And he and Dick always had a boat out on Mission Lake and fishing. He didn't have to sit on the sand and row. He said, God, they got me rowing in the sand trying to practice rowing a boat. That's where that picture was taken.
Sioux City.
And that dress was blue, and it was kind of a, oh, it wasn't wool, but it was a light winter material.
Mhm. Nice picture.
I don't know if I even have that picture anymore. I suppose I do somewhere. I've got so damn many pictures. Roger says, just throw the albums away. Don't even look at them. I said, no, you can't do that. You gotta go through them.
Throw them away.
Well, I've got probably 10 albums of pictures taken in Texas. People,
Oh,
you don't know. Roger, Jerry don't know.
Yeah.
Most of them are all dead and gone now. Like Rose said to me one time, she was in the nursing home, and she said, I wish there was somebody in here my age that I could enjoy visiting with. And I said, Rose, everybody else your age is gone.
Mhm.
And she said, well, I guess that's right. I guess that's right, she said. And I understand now because she was 97
Mm-hmm.
and here I'm 98. I'm the oldest one up there in that 65 people.
Really? Hmm.
There was one that was 2 months older than me, but she
Transferred
had to
out.
move down to the assisted living section. And Roger thinks I should go down there maybe. I have a long-term care policy. And I pay every month, I pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying, he said, I think a doctor would give you permission that you would be eligible for assisted living.
Yes, but you wouldn't like
But
it down
then you
there.
get 3 meals a day and you get one little room,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want it.
Yeah, as long as you don't have to. Heck.
One little room.
Well,
Oh,
Just a bedroom if you move down into the nursing home.
I saw the one that the lady went to down there, and she had to get rid of everything. I couldn't have a third of the stuff I
No.
got up there.
No.
And every summer, I want the boys and I to get up there and get that stuff out of your storage. They go shopping, they go
Fishing.
camping and fishing, and they're always busy and they don't want it. I'm gonna see if I can't do something about it this summer, but I don't know.
Try and get him to if you can. We'll go do it.
Well, there's stuff that Mike could take back to the house and he could use some of. But, well, what's that? Though it's Eldon Mike.
Mike. Chick. Not Mike.
Her face.
Hmm?
What she look like? Look at that. I have to laugh. Look at her expression.
Smiling.
do you remember when they got married?
Huh?
Do you remember when Mom got married?
When she got that?
Married.
Oh, got married. Well, I wasn't there, but I remember,
Did Grandpa?
Margaret,
Can't say her name. Don't know who you
they
mean.
run the cafe there on Mission Street.
Yes.
What the heck? She and Elda were good friends, and Elda told her that she was gonna go, and she thought they'd probably get married while they were gone. She told Margaret, and Margaret told me. She said, don't be surprised if your sister's married when she comes back.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, I didn't know anything about it, but I got them together the first time they ever got in the car and took a ride.
Really?
Chick came to me, Ike and I were in the car. We'd been dating for a while. And Chick and Ike went to school together in Mission for a short time. So they were friends, and Chick said to Ike, or Chick came out to the car, I guess, and was visiting with Ike and I. We'd been in the Hoffines, and Elda was in there with some of the girls or something. And Chick said to me, would you go in and see if you could get your sister to come out and let's go for a ride, come out and go for a ride with the 4 of us. And I said, well, I think so. He said, well, don't tell her who it is, just tell her somebody wants to see her. So I said, okay, so I went in. She came out, she had no idea who was going, but I said, just get in the back seat. She crawled in there and there was Chick. And so I just started a car and we took off. And that's the way they got together. Anyhow, I told my mother, I said, I think Elvis and Chick are gonna get married. She said, oh, no, she wouldn't. She wouldn't do that, she said.
She wouldn't do that.
But she did. So they teased me then because they got married 2 months before we did, see? But we dated for 3 years or more.
Well, didn't she know Dad at all before then?
Well, she knew who he was about all, I guess. But I worked at Halleck's, and Ike worked at Halleck's. He wasn't working there when I started, but he was with the walkathon with his sister. And then he later came home and worked at Halleck's, and he and I both worked at Halleck's. And Elda then worked at Everest's store. I think she did. And we always laughed about we worked at both ends of the main street. And she married one of the owners and ended up owners, and I worked one of the clerks.
I didn't know she ever worked there.
Well, maybe she didn't work there, but
I mean, maybe she did, but I don't
she
know.
kinda, during Christmas or something, she'd be up there.
Well,
Yeah, she would remark about, because Twyla always said, Twyla never ever worked there because she had to take care of her 4 darlings. Her 4 darlings, she didn't have time to go work at the store. Elder would say she can't come over because she's got 4 darlings she has to take care of.
what did Grandpa and Grandma say when they found out she got married?
Oh, they didn't, I don't think they had much to say. They were surprised, didn't really know much about him.
He was a lot older than she was.
10 years.
Yeah, she was 10 years, he was 10 years, wasn't he?
Yes.
Didn't that concern them?
Well, I don't know. Grandpa was 10 years older than Grandma, and you know,
No, she wasn't.
No,
I-
he wasn't.
yes, he was.
Grandpa
He
Sanderson?
was born in
Gran-
92.
No, I mean Grandpa Humphrey.
Oh,
I always had it in my mind, and I've said that Grandpa was always 20 years older than Grandma. I don't know where I got that, but I had that in my mind. And I was reading some of this stuff here just a couple
10
weeks
years.
ago, and he was 10 years older.
yeah. Grandpa Aberesk was 20 years older than Grandma Aberesk.
He was what?
20 years older.
Well, maybe I heard that
Maybe
somewhere,
that's
but
what
I
you
had
were
it in my
thinking of.
mind it was my grandpa. Yeah, Chick and Elda went with Al and Biddy Nelson up to Colorado or somewhere. They went on a trip
Mm-hmm.
before they were married, I think.
I thought they got married in Nebraska for some reason.
Yeah,
They
went.
did.
They went to
Oh.
Yankton, and they got what's their friend from Wood,
Jack Belfany?
Balconies, and they wanted Balconies to go with them as
Yeah.
witnesses. She wouldn't go. She had, I guess she was working in a cafe or running a cafe or something. Or else she had kids at home, I don't know, but she said no, she wasn't gonna, she couldn't go, but Jack went with them.
Mhm.
They just went across the bridge into Nebraska.
What was the town? Broken? Not Broken, but no.
Crawford?
No.
No. Hardington or some Harrington or something south
Yeah.
of Yankton.
Yeah.
But one thing I always remember, we would go to dances at Mission, up at the new Mission Hall, you know. And they lived in back of the store, and they hadn't been married too long. But Elda was in bed asleep, and Chick came over to the dance, and I guess it was intermission or something, and nothing would do but Ike and I had to go home with him and have, I don't know, stuff to eat. He wanted to eat. Chick always wanted to eat. And he got Elda out of bed, told her to get up. And she had to get out of bed and come out and eat with us. And we had some kind of big olives he always liked, you know, green olives and stuff. It was okay, but I always thought Elda didn't want to get up out of bed, and we were all dressed up and dancing, and
Yeah.
she'd been asleep, and he woke her up and said, "Get up, we got company."
Sounds like him.
But anyway, they were supposed to go with Ike and I when we were going to get married. And we told Chick and Elda the day before, or a couple of days before, that we were going to get married the day after Christmas. We worked till 1 o'clock in the morning at the store, Christmas Eve, and you couldn't get anybody on Christmas Day. We had to go and get the license at the courthouse. So we went and waited until the day after Christmas. And then we went, and we told them the night before. I told Chick, and I was there. We were going to go down
To
at a
where?
certain time
To where?
to Valentine.
Oh, Valentine, okay.
And Chick said, "Oh, Elda's gotta get up and get dressed, and we gotta have breakfast." And I said, "We're gonna be down there about 10 o'clock, or whatever time, I don't remember, but I think he probably said about 10 o'clock. And Chick said, "No, we can't make it that early." And I said, "Well, we're gonna go." "Oh, no." So anyway, we waited, and it was time, and they didn't show up, and Chick had been insistent that we can't go that early. So we went and got Dick and Vera, and we went. And Dick and Vera just hopped in the car the way they were. And we got married, and we ate dinner, and they went home, and we went to Ainsworth, and it was snowing. Ainsworth, yeah, is that right? South and east of Valentine. We used to live down there years before. So anyhow, that's what happened, and when we came home, Dad was mad, my dad. He said, "You shouldn't have done that." Elda came down here and she cried. She was upset because you'd already gone. I said, "They had time, we had talked to them, we told them the night before, we told them what time, and they knew. And they didn't come, because Chick
Yeah, that was
had to
Dad's-
have his way.
Dad's doing.
That was Chick. So Dad said, "Well, you shouldn't have done that." It didn't bother me. I said, they had plenty of time, and it wasn't Elda's fault. I know that, but and another thing, Chick didn't talk to me for, I don't know, a couple months at least.
Because of that?
When we worked in the store, and this was after they'd been married, probably, well, we were married 3 years before we went to the war, so it was probably a year and a half after we was married, or 2 years or something. We both worked in stores, and we had the circus came to town. Or was it the Shrine Circus in winter? Anyhow, the stores had free tickets to give away.
Mhm.
Well, our store had run out of them. And I guess Everest store had run out of them. And they sent somebody, I think Chick sent Mrs. What was that family out there
Out where?
south of town that lived west of where our farm out south of town was, way, oh, that family that had all those kids, and they lived in a little house. They all lived in one room, I think.
Oh, Zimiga?
Zemina.
Zimina.
Zemina.
That's it.
Well, you know what old lady Zemina was like?
Yes. Exactly.
She'd go, at that time no, it was after I worked at the store. I worked up at the county building where they gave away free clothes. And she came in and they gave her some underbloomers, and they also gave them clothes, pants and things, you know. Well, they gave her some pants. She brought them back and hung them out. She said, they're big enough for 2 horses or something. She was mad. They were way too big, but she was big herself, you
It
know.
wasn't real little.
But they laughed about that. But anyhow, she went into Everest store and asked for tickets for that circus.
Yeah.
And Chick said, we don't have any, go down to Halleck's, they'll have them. And she came down there and we didn't have any either. And she wouldn't leave and she wouldn't take no for an answer. And she stayed there and she argued. And she said, I know you got them and you just don't want to give them to me. And she just went on and on and on. And she finally went home mad, and we went home disgusted. And so I said to Chick, you sent her down there. I told him the next day or two. I said, you didn't have to tell her that we had them, because you knew if you were run out, we probably were too, and we were. But I said, you could have, rather than send her down there, I said, and sick her on to me anyway. She came to me, and Ike and I were both into it, trying to get her to accept the fact we couldn't give her any, we didn't have them. And I said to Chick, you could have afforded to give her a ticket rather than send her down here. So he was mad at me. He didn't speak to me for a long time.
Long time, like how long?
Oh, a month or so. Yeah, he really was mad. He said, you didn't need to tell her that. I said, I didn't tell her that, I told you that. But God, we went home, you know, without supper about 7 o'clock, and here she come and stayed for an hour arguing about it. And
At your house?
No, at the store. At your house?
yes,
Oh, I thought you meant at the store.
no, she come down where we lived.
Now, who was it was it her sons or her husband
She
that killed
had-
somebody? Who'd they kill?
Can't remember.
You remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I
know
can't
one of the
remember.
boys was.
Yeah, the Zeminas, one of the
One of
Zeminas
them
went
was
to
in
trial
jail.
for
One of them
murder.
was in jail, I
I'll be
think.
darned.
But Elda was draft
Remember that.
board clerk for all of them, and one of them was a pretty good kid. And he used to always, I think, write to Elda when he was in service or something. Yeah, one of them, I can't remember what it was, but I know, you know, they come over and Dad was drilling wells. got this thing, I'm not gonna tell you this stuff.
Go ahead. All right, it's off. Go ahead. What's the story?
Point it towards yourself.
Okay, what's the story?
Well, Dad was drilling wells and they came over and wanted a well, so he went over there and drilled him a well. And he was measuring the pipe that he was going to put down after he drilled the well, and told her how many feet it was and what it was going to be, and she argued that he didn't need to put that much pipe down or something. And she didn't have any way of knowing it or measuring it or anything, and he knew how many feet he had put down, I guess. And he finally got mad and he said, well, are you gonna pay for it? Right now you got the money? She said, you know, we don't have any money. No, she couldn't pay anything. So of course she went home and never got nothing for the well, never did. But she was mad because she thought he was charging her 3 times too much,
Charging?
or
Doesn't sound like she meant to pay any.
too many feet, claimed too many feet down.
What difference did it make if she
Well,
wasn't
it
paying?
didn't matter. That's it. She was mad. And then they came over, when they first moved there, they came over to, we always had 4th of July picnic in the grove of trees, and all the neighbors would come and bring food. And we always had homemade ice cream, about 3. And they had just moved in like the day before or something, and somebody had told them to go over to that place for 4th of July, and they came like 2 hours after everybody had cleaned up everything. The ice cream was all gone. There was one that somebody had opened it and got all the salt water got into the ice cream. It was so salty nobody could eat it. But everything was put away and packed away and eaten up, and here they came with about 6 kids, and they wanted to eat. Well, I guess Mom and all the women drug out whatever there was. But the ice cream, there was no ice cream except that was so salty. And they were she was mad about that. I don't remember if they tried to eat the salty ice cream, or can't remember, but they didn't come until it was 2 hours too late for
Who was mad?
Mrs.
old lady Zemina. She was always the,
Did she have a husband?
oh
that
yeah,
lived
she
with her?
had a husband,
I
sure
don't
she
remember
did.
him.
Skinny old guy. And I started out to say somebody was over there and asked about something one time about their crops or something. She said, the only crop we ever have is this, another baby. They just had a baby after a baby after a baby. What did they have, about 6 kids?
A whole slew of them, I don't remember. And they were just very, very weird.
And you know, some of them, a couple of them still lived there, but somebody died in the yard, and dogs,
Oh,
That's what I remember.
Yeah, I can't remember that.
nobody found them till days afterwards.
That's what I remember. Something.
Dogs were hungry and they ate.
Mhm. Sure.
I just don't remember it any, but something vaguely back in my mind.
I cannot remember.
She came over one time somewhere, maybe it was in town or in the store or something, and she wanted to go down to Vermilion or somewhere down east, some town. She wanted to see her mother. She had died, and she wanted to go see her before they stuck her in the dirt, she said, or stuck her down in the hole or some such.
Oh, it's
Two.